Oh, g'day champions. Time for another video. An actual video, not just a dry July beverage review. So here we've got I believe it's a 1974 Marshall Super Bass head with the matching cabinet. I'm going to go over it and see what we need to do to restore it. This is going to be a working amp rather than a museum piece. So we're going to do what we can to make it reliable and make it sound fantastic. So there's some cabinet stuff we've got to go over. Missing feet, that kind of thing. Missing grill, shouldn't be able to put my hand down there. Cosmetically, we probably want to keep it about how it is because it's got some charm to it, but we want to make it bulletproof and make it an absolute beast so it can outlive everyone who's watching. So we'll have a look at what's already been done to it by previous technicians and see how it can be improved and have a look at the history of the thing. Also compare the Super Bass to the Super Lead circuits. This is going to be destined to be a guitar amp and cabinet. These days, the vast majority of bass players are looking for a little bit more power, a little bit more headroom than this amplifier can offer. This would be fantastic for old school punk bands, that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, it's a 100-watt amp, and it's not going to stand up to most modern music requirements for bass. So, you know, bass players in rock and metal bands are getting like 500 to 1,000-watt amps these days just to have the headroom to keep up with a meathead drummer and a guitarist with a massive ego. So we're going to build this for a guitarist with a massive ego and maybe make some voicing changes to make it more suited for guitar. But you've got to bear in mind that guitarists like Frusciante, Clapton, many others, they chose the Super Bass over the Super Lead, and there was a good reason for that. So I'm not really interested in doing before and after sound samples on this one because it is in a little bit of a sorry state at the moment, as you're about to see. So what we might do is restore it to the stock circuit, the Super Bass circuit, and then we'll make a few little modifications just to make it voiced a little bit more suited to guitar. And we'll do some before and after recordings of that, and I'll try and keep my riffage as consistent as possible. So join us for the fun, legends, and of course, like, subscribe, you know it helps, share it around. I'll have some more cool videos coming soon, and try and be a little bit more professional about things. I know this is the channel you come to hang out and not watch in front of your mother, but I've really been under the pump here, turning over, you know, a dozen amps, maybe 2 dozen guitars a week. Just one person show, except for when Dad's in town. He's been a great help. But it's time to catch up on the videos a little bit. Remember why I got into it in the first place, because I enjoyed it, and share the love with you champions. All right, here she is on the dirty grey mat, and that's how you know it's business time. So let's crack this thing open and have a look at the horrors within. All right, as is almost always the case on amps this vintage, you've got missing screws on the rear panel, if you've got a rear panel at all, so we can't complain too much. Got a missing fuse holder there. I think that's been snapped off and pushed inside. You've got your inappropriate XLR connector for the mains input there. You've got a very inappropriate main selector little link in there, which you know, is not safe at all. Like the original one was dangerous enough how it is, but it's sort of got the grandfather clause thing going on. And you got the same thing, just a bit of bent fencing wire for the output impedance selector. The output jacks appear to be original. There's a massive dent in the back here from abuse at some point. So we'll see if we can straighten that out without too much trouble. But all in all, there's no extra holes. So that's nice, because these are another one of those amps that people love to mod and destroy. The rear grill's in place, the top one's not. So all in all, she's in not too bad shape. All of the imperfections on this amp give it a bit more charm than anything else. There's no functional issues, so that's good. Now, as mentioned previously, we've got the missing top grill, but I've ordered some material from Tube Amp Doctor. There's the code there, MGMM, and hopefully it doesn't look too different. I can cut a piece of that out and staple it in place. And as for the handle, still fine. It's got a nice patina, looks its age. bit like me. So let's get this thing apart and have a look inside the chassis. That's the beauty of missing screws, you don't have to undo as many of them. Alright, so just a quick look inside. Yeah, you got usual 1/2 inch thick layer of dust that you get in every Marshall with a top vent. Got a mismatched set of valves there. You've got one there with a little top nipple and another 3 which appear to be the same set. One's tweaked over at an angle there, and that's not actually the valve in the socket. That's the actual valve socket on the chassis is misaligned, so I have to have a closer look at that. And as you can see, that transformer's pushed over at a significant angle with bent brackets, so we're going to have to remove that, straighten all of that. You've got the original daily caps in there. We're going to remove them, put some new tube amp doctors in there. It appears to be original transformers and choke. So that's happy days. All the valve shields are intact and, you know, still there. So far, looking not too bad. So here's a detail of that tweaked over valve. You can see there's a bit of a gap under the ceramic there, whereas on the other ones it's pretty tight all around. Now we are entirely missing that foot up to the top right there, and we're missing 2 chassis screws, and the chassis screws that are existing don't look original either. And just a close-up detail on the feet, you can tell how much work this thing has actually seen. Look at it, those little Marshall feet that are normally like a little rubber dome, they're worn all the way through, there's nothing left. So I've ordered a new set. Going to replace all 4 feet with some that actually still have that little ball intact. I'll just grab our favourite number 3 Phillips screwdriver, take out the 2 screws that are there, and there she is. We'll have a closer look at the top before we flip it over and have a look at the guts. And just a quick look at this thing. Looks like this old school speaker connector, like a 2-prong plug, and it's been broken, or this may have even been one of those Vox fuses that you know, you used to get in on the top of the AC30s and stuff, and it had a fuse built in, and possibly this was one of them and the fuse blew. So what they've done is just thrown some wire in there, and then they've realised that that's uninsulated, so they've just covered it with what feels like araldite, that epoxy that never quite hardens. Like, this is probably 40 years old and it's still, I can make marks in it with my fingernail. That's not safe, that's not rated, that's not anything, so that can go bye-bye. We'll get some original little selector knobby plug things. I don't know what the term is, but CE Distribution still sells them, so I've got 2 of them on order, 1 for each. And on the speaker, you've just got literally a bit of coat hanger or something. So that goes bye-bye as well. As for the mains connector, I'll put one of those IEC bulging connectors on there. It's vertical, and that should sort us out. It looks, however, that there is a screw there as well. So I'll see what shape cutout is on the other side. We might have to see a visible screw once the work's done, unfortunately, but it's worth it to have the thing safe and standardized. I mean, can you imagine wherever this mains lead that they used to use with this amp is, like, the potential for fatality and just destruction? It's just a standard mic connector. You've got a bunch of cables coming out, one of them's plugged into the power point, and you've got a bunch of mic cables. Just musicians can't be trusted with that shit. It has to be one way to plug it in, or it just won't fit. Otherwise they'll try it, and believe me, they will try. So just a quick look at the tag there. It looks like it was tested, so finished construction 10th of April 74. So it's almost exactly 10 years older than me. But then curiously, the caps are actually dated 75, so I don't know. I can't see a way that could have occurred unless, I don't know, maybe it was recapped, it got returned for a recap. I don't know. It's anyone's guess, really. It's just strange, because normally the caps would be dated a year or 2 before the actual completion date, if there is one present on the chassis. Maybe someone can shed a bit of light on what could have happened there. There's a lot of much more knowledgeable Marshall and Fender historian nerds that know a lot more than I do. that's not hard. So another look at the front panel now. You can see the alley's bent over a bit there. So this isn't a plexi amp. It gets referred to as a plexi, but technically it's an alley panel amp. You can see there someone's replaced the main switch with this huge paddle thing that's bent because it extends beyond the cabinet. We've got some, they're not the original little paddle switches, like you can see that standby switch there is original. We just can't find them, not without paying an exorbitant amount anyway. So all the knobs look original, the pots aren't. You can see some are shooting out a bit far, like the shafts weren't cut off at the right length when the pot was replaced. The input jacks look original, the original Cliff UK ones. We've got a little bit of the corner picking up on the alley there as well, so we'll flatten that out. But all in all, pretty unmolested, which is getting rarer and rarer these days. Alright, so there's the overall detail of the thing. Not too much horror within. Alright, now I've checked this thing for no stray voltages, so we're good there. You can see there, fantastic soldering. But essentially none of these solder joints wetted at all, so whoever replaced these fuse holders probably didn't know what they were doing. We've got a snapped off wire there. At least they got the, well, who knows which one was what here, but they've gone straight from the input to the fuse tip and then onto the front switch from there. So that's sort of marks there, but not great. You know, you've got loose mains connections just waiting to hit the chassis. So no good. That will all get redone. New valve, new fuse holders. They're looking a little bit brittle and old. So this one's snapped off completely. It's just the plastic's really powdery. It's almost like it's second hand when they put it in. So, but looking at the cutout for the mains input, it looks like it was the original, well, looked similar footprint to the impedance and mains selector switch in terms of the cutout. So that was probably a sort of collared original Bulgin connector. I could probably find one of them online for the vintage fanboys, but this thing's going to be a working amp, not a museum piece, like I said. So we'll just whack in one of those IEC connectors that's meant to fit into the Bulgin style hole cutout in the chassis, and that'll get us out of trouble and be standardized. So looking down here, it looks like someone's been in this area and probably inadvertently pushed down that screen grid resistor, and that's almost touching that connection there. Chances are those resistors are fine still. We'll check them for drift, however. The original speaker jacks look to be okay, and these aren't shunting or anything, so you don't have to stress too much about the shorting contacts. They're just paralleled there. The paint that they've used on all the connectors is like tamper protection. I can't say I've seen that before. It could just be the flux has gone gross, because it's everywhere. I doubt they would have like tamper evidence like every single connection. And you can see down there is some tack solder connections that need to be addressed. It's not real good on an amp of this caliber to just have almost dry solder joints just tack soldered there, so we'll address all of that. So there's no real sign of the caps, you know, exploding. These daily ones seem to go on for a just amazing length of time. Doesn't mean they're going to go forever. So I'm going to change them out. Vintage fanboys, avert your eyes. There is nothing to be achieved by using ancient caps, and you know, if we want this thing to be reliable, we're going to change them out as preventative maintenance. Same goes for the bias caps and the only other electrolytic in this amp, which is the first stage bypass cap. Kind of want to change these epitaxial silicon diodes there for the rectifier, main rectifier for the B plus and the bias, which is a little only one there, getting fed by that resistor. They're known to go short. I'd just rather do it now to avoid any issues in the future. So here's just an overall view of the board. Those mustard caps look okay still, which is good. I've found that they often crack at the ends and allow moisture in, and that's usually the indication that they're going to leak. or that they're suspect. But I've found, at least in my experience, if there's no cracks, they're generally good to go and they perform well. So where we can, we'll leave them in. I'll have to check that 400 volt rating on the coupling caps though. I think that might be a little bit close for comfort, given the bias voltage on the other end. Another curious thing in this amp is all the 10k 1 watt droppers, 1, 2, and then 3 and 4, are made up out of a 22k and a 15k in parallel. So that gives you about 8.9k. But they look stock. Well, when I say they look stock, they look like the original Pi Ho resistors or whatever, however you say that. So I don't know. There's another little mystery, but I think we can probably safely change them to 10k. Yeah, I don't know. I have to ask around. You often find weird stuff like that in these amps, and there's sort of no explanation. It does actually almost look like those bias caps have been leaking some kind of residue. You can see that sort of brown haze on the end plug. But, you know, being bias caps, we're going to change them out anyway because it's not an area you want to take any shortcuts. Now, this being the 1992 circuit, there is a bit of a weirdness where they've got grid stoppers on the 2 outside valves and then none on the 2 inner valves. So I might put some 1.5k on the inner 2 to match the outer 2. I was asking around again, and apparently this could be a bit of an offshoot of some hi-fi concept, which I couldn't find any real credible info of it, but putting those grid stoppers in there has the potential to stop any oscillation or RF interference. So there is a possibility that that resistor's been changed. Anything that looks non-stock may have been played with. You got another one over there. So we'll check the values on everything that doesn't look stock and see what's going on. And there's a bit of a detail of the chassis damage on the rear with the dent. So I think we should be able to straighten that out without too many problems. Remove the back plate first. Separate the adhesive between there and where it is still stuck carefully with a palette knife, and then flatten them both separately and then join them up again. And we are missing a nut cert, so that explains why at least one of the chassis screws has gone missing. So I'll get the gun out and insert a new one on there. So all in all, not too bad. I'll leave it here and I'll get to work and show you, the results, and then we'll start doing some sound samples and then some modding fun. Not drilling holes or doing anything too dramatic, but just like some bright caps here and there, and see if we can sort of get halfway between a super bass and a super lead. Nice round bottom end, but still a bit of a bite and sizzle to the top, because I am a Strat man and that's what we're after. So until then, legends, take it squeezy, and I'll see you on that one.